I'm talking today to Joy Mboya of the Godown Arts Centre. Joy, what is the Godown Arts Centre?
Well, the Godown Arts Centre is an art centre. It's a multidisciplinary space that basically gives artists and artist organisations an opportunity to practice their work at very subsidised rates and tries to connect their work with the community, with audiences.
And you started to make changes to the space, because originally it was an industrial space. What happened as a result of that?
Well, yeah, it's an old warehouse, leaky, everything's sort of falling apart. And we had an opportunity to now think about its development because we purchased the property. And we began to think about what it means to have a properly designed kind of art space sitting in the middle of where we are.
And what did that lead you on to?
Well, it led us to a number of things. It led us to thinking about the space that we were sitting in and its significance for the city. And we discovered that's an old historical area that has a lot of historical and social value. And so we wanted to take cognizance of that as we developed our own space. We're also aware that we have a community that comes to visit artists and consume artists' work. And we wanted to know what they thought about the sort of space that we could develop. And of course, we also knew there were artists who we serve, and we wanted to know what their interest would be in a new look sort of go down.
And you started working with some Swedish artists.
Yeah, so the Swedish artists came on board because we'd started just discussing questions of art and the development of livelihood for artists with them. And as we got to know each other better, we then sort of said, well, maybe you can introduce us to some architects who can help us think through this big question around developing the art house, but also how it sits within the neighborhood and in the wider Nairobi. And so we had a wonderful visit of 48 professionals from a firm called White Architects in Stockholm.
And what was the work that they did and what came out of that?
They've helped us think through a section of this whole area, which we're calling the axis. So it's actually basically stepping out of the Godown gate and walking across to downtown. But to get across to downtown, you basically cross the whole central railway station area through a narrow footbridge. And so we were sort of trying to...
It sort of cuts the city in two, doesn't it?
It does. It actually divides sort of the north and the southern part. And actually, if you're a pedestrian, your only access into the city centre is through this footbridge. Otherwise, you have to then find your way through the traffic.
And large numbers of people move across the city on foot.
Large numbers, huge numbers,
Yeah.
in our artists included.
Yeah.
So they were helping us think through how to develop this particular area as the beginning of a sort of a cultural precinct for the whole area, which is about 7 kilometres square in total. But the area that we're looking at is what, probably less than half a kilometre walk.
And you discovered in this process that the railway was letting a large development on
Yes.
a large part of the site.
That's right. So we discovered that the railway was also thinking about making some money, and that they were creating a master plan around sort of development for developers of offices, of hotels, of some of what they were calling sort of cultural aspects as well. And so we became interested and sort of said we would like to be part of this process, not as developers, but as people who can bring on board others with creative ideas to help to see how to make this master plan the best sort of development that could be.
And what was the attitude of the railway management?
They've been very, I think, open and friendly, and actually have participated in all of the seminars and workshops that we've held, and invited us to their own briefings as well. But of course we need to see whether we can actually deliver money, because that's what they're looking for. But we're trying to see whether a conversation around a vision of a development that actually will pay off for centuries to come is something that they can buy into. So these are the discussions we're having with them right now.
And they put it out to tender rather unsuccessfully. Describe what happened.
Yes, they did. They put it out to tender. They were looking for developers. And I think that when we then went into a briefing session after that call, there were very few that were present. I think there was probably 2 that were in the room. And they said that they would re-tender again, but they were looking to now complete their master plan and get approvals from the city to be able to now properly lease these out to developers.
And it's been some proposals they put forward already which are quite sort of cut against the kind of proposals you're putting forward. What were they?
I think one of the ones that is has been a little bit alarming for us has been the same area that we're looking at, which is that walk from the Godown across into the city centre. They're planning to put a toll road over there. And so we sort of are raising questions around that, because the toll road, of course, is going to be, again, another vehicular structure, very high. It doesn't seem to have consideration for pedestrians, but also it doesn't seem to be aware that right parallel to it, the main highway that cuts through the city is also looking at double stacking and that we're going to have sort of a wonderful mess there. So we're sort of trying to gently encourage discussions around looking at how else to do this.
And how will you find money, do you think, to participate in this development?
Well, already I think that just having this initiative that's coming from so-called civil society and the private sector has drawn the attention of CEDA, the Swedish Development Agency, and UN Habitat. And so they're giving us some support to be able to have the conversations that we're having with the railway right now. And hopefully we'll be able to attract other people to come into this conversation, particularly those who can help us now visualize this and actually have a culture house sitting within that master plan space, so we can be a part of the people who are in conversation around how this thing develops.
And within that access area, there is some of the old parts of Nairobi, aren't there?
Yes,
Describe
yes.
some of those.
Yes, it's a wonderful, actually, old area. You've got the very old cemetery, lots of stories about the early settlement of the city from some of those who are resting under the soil there. You've got the old railway golf course area that still exists. You've got the Phoenix Theatre that was formerly the Donovan Mall Theatre that's sitting over there. The Rail Museum is sitting in that area. The Polytechnic, which is another very old institution, is sitting in that particular area. And when you curve around, you've got the old markets, the Mudhura markets, and the old Mudhura estate. And then, of course, some of the very early African housing estates way to the west. And then the old city stadium as well, and the old prison. So it's really an area that I think is full of history and full of stories.
It could become a creative quarter of some kind.
Absolutely. We sort of see it as a sort of a cultural precinct, a creative precinct. Yeah.